yourself. And
Okay, test. Can you all hear me?
gotcha.
Good. I am a grateful alcoholic, and I'm a member of the King City group in Ontario, Canada. George, my friend, thank you, brother. And I know I have a couple of my home group members here, which warms my heart. They've heard me share many times, and I'm so appreciative that you're here tonight. But you know, wherever I go in Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever meeting I go, I feel like home. But the important thing is that I do have a home group. I am a grateful alcoholic today. My sobriety date is February the 7th, 1988. I have a sponsor. I sponsor other women. I try and practice these steps to the best of my ability to follow the traditions and the legacies of AA. So, you know, that qualifies me tonight to be here as an alcoholic, to share my experience, strength, and hope. And thank you, Todd, for inviting me. You know, the Serenity Improvement Group, I was thinking about, you know, our Serenity Prayer and thinking, my gosh, you know, when I came in here, I had no serenity. There was no serenity to be had. I didn't think it was possible to live with any sort of serenity. You know, to share my experience of what it was like for me, and how I got to this place, how I showed up in Alcoholics Anonymous, how I show up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and why I continue to do so. You know, I did not understand alcoholism when I was younger. I didn't understand what that meant. My definition of an alcoholic was one who, you know, was on the street, had no home, and so on. I grew up in a little small fishing village in Canada, in Newfoundland, in the province of Newfoundland, quite a quaint little fishing village. And I did not grow up in an alcoholic home. So, you know, I had a loving family. I had, you know, a beautiful father, a great mother, two sisters. I was the third girl, and a brother. And it felt, though, when I was younger, I'll tell you the feelings I had. And this is, I go through this because I think this is a part of the introversion, the self-absorption, the sensitivity. I was always very sensitive. Does that make me an alcoholic? Well, we'll see. The sensitivities when I was younger led me to be very introverted, and but I felt safe. I felt that I had, you know, quite a loving home. But there was alcoholism on the extended family. So there were extensions of alcoholism and drama and trauma on the outside of our little family, in my uncles. However, you know, my story is talk about faith, and this program is a spiritual one. And I'm going to tell you, my faith as a young child was, we were introduced to a faith. And I experienced tragedy when I was 8. My father was suddenly killed in a work accident, and he was the one who taught us to have a faith, and my mother followed suit, of course. But having said that, you know, I was completely devastated. I was 8 years old. When I turned 11 and 12 years old, that devastation, sensitivity, I call it, I was maladjusted to life. I didn't know how to handle those feelings. I didn't know how to handle what was happening. And my very first drink comes next, my solution to all of that trauma, all of that inability to adjust, adapt to life. Excuse me. And when I found alcohol, it was in the beginning, it worked for me. We often hear that in these rooms. It worked for me because it gave me the ability to be able to cope with these feelings, to numb these feelings. You see, the other part of the alcoholism within me was this sense of restlessness. This sense of fear. We read it in our big book often, and the irritation at life. I was filled with fear and afraid that something was going to happen. I always had this feeling something is going to happen. And the alcohol eased that for me. It eased me. So it worked for me when I was younger. And of course, when I was younger, when I took my first drink, a lot of us take it, we become full-blown alcoholics right away. That is not my story. My story is I was a binge drinker. And so all through my teenage years, when I could get it, that's the way I rolled. That's the way I rolled. And, you know, that internal angst of restless, irritable, discontentedness, I was never okay with where I was, put it that way. I was always looking on the outside of me to fix my internal feelings of discontent, disconnection. And talk about, you know, by this time, that awareness or that faith or that belief in a higher power or any kind of practice was way far way out, because I was seeking solutions in different ways. And one of those was relationships. You know, the questions of, I'm going to find it when, I'm going to find happiness when, I'm going to find contentment when I'm living in the right place, when I'm in the right relationship, when I'm in the right job, when I've succeeded enough. So that was my story. That was my internal dialogue. That was my internal dialogue. And alcohol was a part of that, you know, that story of, that gave me comfort. It gave me false courage. It gave me the ability to always dream up these new solutions to try and solve the problem. So what I'm saying in short is, I had a problem with living. I had a living problem. I had a living problem. There goes the dilemma of, you know, this male-adjusted, you know, person. And that's me. I was male-adjusted. And so that binge drinking took me all the way through my teenage life, my school life, my high school life. When I left school, I did all of these classic things in the big book that okay, so we'll continue. So yeah, that was my pattern. And so I often changed places I lived. I changed jobs that I did. I went back to school for fashion. I was always seeking out there. You know, when I arrive, you know, anybody ever have that a feeling when I arrive, or those thoughts, when I get here, when I do this, when this happens. So that took me all the way through, you know, my young 20s. And, you know, I also thought, you know, when I meet the right person, when I get married, when we have children, when things are, yeah, I call it the Cinderella Syndrome. Okay. Get married, have the right person, have the kids, have the home in the suburbs, the white picket fence, the cars in the garage, and everything is going to be okay. Well, that happened. We got married, found the right person, had the two kids, had the successful house in the suburbs. But internally, everything was the same. And I was having this battle. Why am I not contented? Why am I not at peace? Why is this not the solution? And meanwhile, the drinking continued. Binge drinking continued. And so, in our big book, it talks about the different types of alcoholics and the different lengths that we go and the different personalities and stories. You see, my story is whenever I took the alcohol, it numbed the crazy thinking. It numbed the feelings, the over emotionalism. You see, because at this point, alcoholism is progressing and I didn't even know it. My life is getting unraveling, and it was a part of my alcoholism, but I didn't really know it. So this alcoholic mind would always say, the problem is outside of me. It's their fault. It's his fault because he's getting angry. It's his fault because he's not doing what I think should be done, and so on. You see, that's the crazy making of the alcoholic mind for me that I understand today that I didn't understand back then. Because back then my reality was my perceptions were so way off from what was really happening. What was really happening was that my mind was creating this chaos, this sense of poor me was starting to become so self-absorbed, was starting to become so self-centered, was starting to become all about me, and all about my suffering, all about my victimhood. And so my alcoholism at that point on progressed rapidly, rapidly. I got married at 25 years old. I had 2 kids right away. By the time I was 28, with that alcoholism progressing at such a rapid rate, I did progress to the point where I became a daily drinker. I did progress to the point where I was having anxiety. I did progress to the point where I had massive depression after my second child. I did progress to the point where I was doing things that I never thought possible, that I was not raised that way. I started to slip all morals, all of the things that I was taught to be a good daughter, to be a good mom, to be a good family member, to be a good citizen. All of that went out to window, and my world became very small. It was all about me and my alcoholism and my extreme fear and my emotions, and I'm just not wanting to live that way, knowing something was wrong, but not willing, couldn't admit it, couldn't define it. And so at age 28, I found myself at such a desperate place where I couldn't wake up without drinking. I was waking up in the middle of the night shaking. I was hiding things, and I had 2 little babies, 2 little kids at home, 3 and 2 years old. No need to hide, and I was hiding things. You see, I didn't realize that is the classic progression of the alcoholic, but I didn't know what was really happening. And so by the time I hit my bottom at 28, I was in a very dark place and thought that there was no solution for me. I thought that, I wanted to get better. I really did, but I couldn't give it up. You see, I had crossed that line where alcohol, was doing to me. It wasn't doing anything for me at that point. It was doing something to me. And it was taking over my whole life. It was destroying everything that was dear and near to my heart. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt, there's other things involved in my story that I got involved in. But this is Alcoholics Anonymous, and the extreme of my alcoholism took me down a very dark path. So I ended up in a treatment center, and that's where I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I would love to share with you that from then on, I got on the magic carpet ride, and that, it led me to that serenity and the solution to life that was just smooth and easy. But that would be a lie. That would be a lie. Because, I'm stubborn, I'm defiant by nature. That's how I came into this program. Stubborn, defiant, filled with pride, and did not really want to tell the truth of how terrible I was really feeling, and could not see myself, doing this work as it is laid out in our big book. My mind, by the time I had gotten in here, I was at um, such just a clouded emotional mess that even picking up the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, with the first meeting I ever went to, the only thing that would register with me was, you are no longer alone. I saw people like you who were smiling, who were nodding, some crying, some shaking, but so many old timers, so many people that were here for quite a long time. And they seemed to have their life together. And I really didn't get why they were still here. Because you see, my mind wanted, it wanted a solution. It wanted to think that, I'll take over from here. It was when I entered Alcoholics Anonymous that I understood only one thing, and that was that there was something that I felt. I really didn't understand it, but there was something in these rooms that I knew there was a feeling that there was a solution of some sort, but I wasn't sure that I could get it. And so I was going to meetings. I'll tell you from my experience what not to do. And if you're doing it, good luck. It didn't work for me, but I'll tell you some of the things I tried earlier on in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was, I was going, which is a good thing. I was going to a ton of meetings every day. I personally had an addictions therapist. I was going to aftercare at the treatment center that I went through. I was doing all of these things. By 9 months sober, you know how they recommend you find a home group, you get a sponsor, you work the steps, you get into service, right? That's not what I did. I don't recommend it. I recommend to take the advice that we're given. But this is, remember, my story, and one that was filled with defiance and wanting to do it my way in my time. And so by the time I was 9 months sober, I was worse than when I came in here. Do you know what that means? It means my mind was not treated. My emotions were not treated. My spiritual condition had not changed. And I was walking around a dry alcoholic in Alcoholics Anonymous, going to meetings after meetings after meetings, but not really stopping and asking for the help that was needed. And so by 9 months, I was at that crossroad. And, I don't know if there's anybody in this room who's been at that point in their recovery where they think Alcoholics Anonymous is not working for me. It might be working for you, but it doesn't work for me. Or Alcoholics Anonymous is not working. That's the place I found myself at 9 months sober. And so in desperation, it was suggested, I went to the addictions counselor, and thank God he was in addictions. And he just squarely said to me, you see, I was looking for a different solution. He said to me, you're a full-blown alcoholic in your isms, the I, self, and me. Have you joined a home group? Have you got a sponsor? Have you read the big book? Have you done the steps? Have you done the things that were suggested? And I walked out of there angry. You know why? It was not the answer that I wanted. You see, teachability, it was not the answer that I wanted. And so in desperation, you know what an alcoholic, a good, stubborn, defiant one does, they will keep going until they try and get the answer that they want. And so I went to the addictions counselor at the treatment center. So that answer was from an addictions doctor. I went to the counselor. Same suggestion came back at me. I got that 3 times. And so I was in such an emotional state and stubbornness, I thought. And the doctor actually at the treatment center said that if you don't do something, I fear that you will not make it. And so out of desperation and stubbornness, and this is a good way to use stubbornness, I thought, I'm going to join a meeting. I'm going to do all of these things. And I did join a meeting. I joined the Willow group initially, got a sponsor, and finally asked for help. You see, way back before I even went into treatment, I felt there was some power in God that I had asked for help. And believe it or not, this stubborn alcoholic, the cravings of, I had a spiritual experience where the cravings were taken away from me. Cravings. So I didn't crave to drink anymore when I went to treatment. But the alcoholism, the disease, was alive and well in me. And I believe it was the grace of God that got me to that point that saved my life. And so when this defiant alcoholic then started in her stubborn way to look for another solution rather than the spiritual one that is suggested. So when 3 of those people told me that maybe, just maybe, if I would join a group, get a sponsor, do the steps, get into service, that I would find the miracle of recovery too. That it was all of the obstacles that were standing in my way, defiance, self-centeredness, stubbornness, unwilling to be humble and to be taught. Well, magic, when I joined that group and I got a sponsor, I'll never forget at that meeting, there was a whole group of us around the table, and I was ready to, say my piece, cry my eyes out and say, this is not working for me. And it was the very first time that I had another pivotal learning experience in Alcoholics Anonymous that got me out of me at that early stage of recovery. And there was one lady who had come in 3 months after me, who was in just as bad a state, who was desperate. And when it got to me and I said my piece and it got to her, and she looked at me and looked me right in the eye. And she said, Norma, you can't leave. You're the only one I understand. So if you're new in these rooms and you don't understand or get what I'm saying, I love you. Please stay. Please don't go. Oftentimes we are called to help a suffering alcoholic right out of the gate. And that is by being here. That is by being real. That is by being totally humbled and just bringing the body. They used to say, just bring the body, the mind will follow. Bring the body, the mind will follow. And that was basically what we did. Gail and I hung out, and we had the meetings before the meetings. There was a whole group of us, the meetings after the meetings. And it started to work. I started to slowly wake up. And though I came in here in 1988, the challenges of life. Life happens. So I have 3 children. And my youngest child, who I had in sobriety, who I thought, if I stay in these rooms and I work this program and I have the home of a clean home, a sober home, a spiritual home, then I would save all of my children from ever having to go through the angst and pain of life that I experienced. Now, is that not arrogant of me? That's arrogant, because that was not the case for me. That was not the case for me. So my sobriety has been challenged. I've had tremendous gifts. So my youngest child that I had 3 years sober, uh, this July celebrated 8 years in this fellowship. My second child, who was a baby, married an alcoholic addict who is clean and sober today. You see, it's a family disease, family disease. Our oldest son, I am still married to that same person who's gone through so much with me, who has been my rock, and we are each other's rock today. October the 8th, we just celebrated 38 years of marriage. The first 4 were not pretty, but we just celebrated 38 years. Our oldest son, who is 37, this is the pains of sobriety. He has been missing in action in our life. I do know where he is, but he refuses to have anything to do with me, my husband, his sisters. He is living probably in a rooming house in Toronto with his own mental health issues or addiction. That is quite painful. And when he left home and that happened, guess where I was on that weekend when I found out that he was leaving and taking off, never to want anything to do with us again. I was in service for Alcoholics Anonymous at an assembly. I was the GSR at the King City Group at that time. And I was in Kingston in our area assembly when my daughter called and said that our son had called a cab, put everything in it, and left. Now, I was over 20 years sober by then. I was doing a lot of service. I was doing a lot of step studies. I was going to my meetings. I was doing all those things and quite spiritually fit, so I thought. But when things like that happen, the ego kicked back in. And early on, I told you I was very angry, or I don't know if I shared that, at God when that happened to my father. Well, after building such a relationship back, I became very angry again. And I was in such pain. And I remember just falling to my knees and crying and sobbing and just being so angry. And after I got all of that out, this quiet little voice, said, "Why not you?" And it woke me up because I realized what was happening. I realized that the disease of alcoholism was trying to take root, and it was trying to pull me away from all of the things and the gifts that I had been given in this program. And that is, my fears were relieved. My fears were relieved. I've had so many wonderful experiences on this journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. So many opportunities, so many great things, but also so many tragic things. My mother, who was my rock, who had come to my side when I went into treatment, she ended up developing severe dementia. And for the past 7 years, this past December, she passed away, but I was capable of being with her all of that time and doing service for her. You see, the amends I make today has been living amends, right? Living amends. And that was not easy. That ride was not easy. I have extreme alcoholism in my close family, my oldest sister, my niece, and so on. So, although that this is such a family disease, I guess what I'm trying to say is, this is my family. You are my family. You are my spiritual family. And through all of the hardships and the joys, what I realized today is that the power of God, the power of God, the power of the creator that created this program is miraculous of the strength that we're given to be able to live life on life's terms. That acceptance in the big book, that no matter what happens, if I accept it and go through the emotions, whether they're good, whether they're painful, whether they are mourning on a loss, whether they are a celebration, then all of it together is a part of the journey of life. And that God, I believe, is giving us the gift of Alcoholics Anonymous so that we can, Stephen, as your group name, to continue to improve our serenity, even when we have heaviness of heart. And it's just from my experience of what I feel today. It's what I feel today. And that's why when I qualify, I say I'm a very grateful alcoholic, because by the grace of God, I have been able to experience all facets of life and to be able to get through it without a craving to have a drink. That to me is a miracle. Without a craving to run away from it. That to me is a miracle. So those are the gifts that this program has given me. And I believe it's there for all of us. And I believe that it is like, it's hard to describe the spiritual realm for me because it's a feeling. And I believe that it's a feeling. It's just internal. They say, we are born in the image of God. It is deep down in every man, woman, and child. If somebody would have told me when I came in that I would have this depth of a gratitude and belief and faith that power is there, and if we tap into it, and that's why step 11 is so important to me, and step 10 and step 12 and all of the steps and this whole program. I'm not sure if I'm going over time. I should check in. Todd, am I going over time? It's okay. Okay. Oh, I'm going on, and I usually like to pause a little bit so that we can feel that. I asked God tonight before I even came on this meeting because I was feeling a little anxious. I was feeling a little nervous, to be truthful, because I had just come back from Newfoundland this summer, and I visited my sister who was in extreme alcoholism, and her common law, their alcoholism has progressed to such a terrible point. And I was so emotional about that, but realized again that I can love her unconditionally. I started to go back to our sister program, Al-Anon, because I realized, I cannot heal somebody else's alcoholism, however much I want to. I remember Bobby D from Barrie that used to say, if I could take it out of me and give it to you, I would, but I would be robbing you. I would be robbing you of this gift. And so that's the way I feel about my sister and my niece who's going through it. I just had a conversation before our meeting too, why I was feeling emotional, because I told you the story about my son. I have a whole group of friends that I've had for over 30 years. We all have children the same ages, and there's two of them that I'm very close to. And their two sons, one of the sons passed away, OD'd 2 years ago on Mother's Day. And her son and my daughter that is in the program for 8 years were born within 2 months of each other. We were pregnant together, and he passed. And my other friend, her son, is at such a bad state of his addiction right now. So, the reality of how devastating this addiction is to homes, to society, to ourselves. But the miracle of the solution, I see at my bottom of my screen, there's 179 of us, but for the grace of God, that could be us, right? That we are here, that we are here. We're on the other side. And if there's anybody in these rooms or in this room that is just coming in, just coming back, feeling that they're just like not budging in the recovery, I implore you, I pray that you stay, you talk to somebody, you reach out, because there is a solution in these rooms. I believe wholeheartedly that the disease of addiction and alcoholism can only be healed by the power that is greater than us. But we need each other. It works through us, in and through us every day, helping each other, taking the hand of AA, walking the journey. But we must do that work ourselves individually as well. That's my passion. That's the truth that I walk. That's the truth and experience that I've lived. And I wish I could, I don't wish. I don't wish. I'm glad, I'm happy. I'm glad that I told you the truth of what my experience is, because that is my truth. I'm passionate about it. And I just want to see this thing be around for generations and generations long after I am gone. That modem to modem, room to room, that worldwide we can help save many more souls from this devastating disease, but also in the joy of recovery, that we're not a glum lot. We're meant to have joy. We're meant to smile. We're meant to laugh. We're meant to see humor in life. I do laugh a lot, believe it or not. I laugh more today than I've ever laughed. The older I get, I'm 63. The older I get, the more I laugh, because the more I realize it's so temporary. I'm on that last chapter. I'm finding joy. I'm going to get up and dance no matter how sad that music is in parts of my life. I can tone that down and I can tone up joy. So that's the gift that I leave you with tonight. I want to thank you all for just allowing me to be here. Thank you, Brother George, for being here, and Bernadette and Wendy and all of you from everywhere. Like, thank you, seriously, from the bottom of my heart. I wish tonight that you take a moment and you pause and you go in and you feel that contentedness, that improved serenity, no matter what is going on in your life. So on that note, I thank you. God bless you. And until we meet again.